Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, I'm John, this is Many a True Nerd, and welcome to a very special episode of Fallout 4, where I'm just going to talk you through one of the settlements I've put together. We're here at the Kingsport Lighthouse, but not quite the Kingsport Lighthouse you're possibly expecting, because something very special has just come into dock here, and that is the good ship Britant is here today. Oh, beautiful. That's my airship, the Royal Britant. She is beautiful. I think you'll agree, tethered to the lighthouse just to make sure she doesn't float off. She is an utterly glorious little thing. Basically, I was just a bit bored with the fact that the Brotherhood had that massive great airship and I didn't get an airship. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to have an airship. So let's go for a little tour and then I'll talk you through how it was all put together, because I think it's rather beautiful. So as it's tethered at the lighthouse here, obviously we'll need to head over to the landing platform, so we'll just climb the lighthouse to get up to that. I quite like it being accessed through the top of the lighthouse, by the way. It kind of feels a bit like, almost like Bioshock Infinite to me, which I think kind of appeals greatly. So there's the rear of our ship. You can see obviously the engines are fairly static at the moment. It's just kind of hovering, so it doesn't need much in the way of propulsion. You can see the steps up here. Obviously for security we keep the landing platform away. To access the ship, all I need to do is go into the building menu and actually build myself some stairs. There we go. Just build ourselves the stairs there. Step up. And then obviously once you're aboard, just make sure that you store those stairs away again so that no one else can get in. Obviously security very, very important. We do have a nice little employees only sign here just to make sure everyone understands what's going on. Fences, very important. When you've built yourself an airship, make sure you've got some security fences around the outside. So go in the back door. And we're here in the nice little entranceway. This is the mid-deck of the ship, by the way. I deliberately put the entrance on the mid-deck so I could easily get to any part of the ship having entered. Obviously, we've got a nice little entry desk here. Just a polite reminder not to smoke because you are standing on a giant airship that's primarily made out of wood. And a couple of turrets, obviously, for defense. The mid-deck is, this part of the mid-deck is obviously the mess hall as well. This is where the active crew can just pick up some food, pick up a drink, and just kind of, you know, chill out here. Just kind of sit down, have some dinner. At the rear of the mid-deck, we've got ourselves the crew quarters. Obviously, we've got some beds, everyone's got their own side table, and we've also got, obviously, some storage for everybody here. There's a couple of toilets here. Obviously, after there were a few complaints from the crew about men leaving the toilet seat up, we do actually have designated male and female toilets. They are facing each other so that there can be competitive going to the toilet if that's what anybody fancies doing. And also just in case anyone has any problems due to a little bit of awkwardness because, you know, everyone can flipping see them, I've put some nice pictures up of water related things just to help everyone relax and go. Also, just to confuse everyone, I put a sign up saying that employees must wash their hands before returning to work when there's no sink. That's basically just a mind game. Obviously, because this is the sleeping quarters, there's no windows or balconies in this room, so it's nice and dark if people need to sleep during the day. However, just in case I need to get them up in a hurry because there's an emergency, I've got this nice switch up here, and if I hit that, that activates strobe lighting in the room just to make sure that everyone gets up in a hurry. That's for if we come under attack, and also just if I don't like the crew very much. So let's turn that off now. The crew quarters is also how you access the lower deck, where there's a bit of electrical stuff as the sign there reads. Obviously, plenty more little kind of railings around the outside to make sure no one falls down in the night. They might do anyway, but what can you do? This is where the generators that power the ship live. We've got a whole bunch of storage for if we're going on a trading mission, and also this is where any of the workbenches can go. So this is, you know, work, storage, power. This is the utility deck down at the bottom here. So obviously, it being the utility deck, we don't need any windows or anything. The mid-deck, however, where there's the mess in the entrance hall, is very lovely. Just got some America flags up there. I'm sure some of you will appreciate that. Lovely views from here, by the way. I love the Kingsport lighthouse because you do get some lovely views out of, I think that's Salem in that direction, and that's the Nahant area, I think, where there's the aquatic research lab, where there's some very nasty mirelurks potentially. So yeah, it's just some beautiful, beautiful views. Anyway, let's head up onto the top deck. We'll leave the room at the very back just for the moment. Obviously, you get a nice view of the engines here, the 2 engines that power this mighty, mighty ship. Recruitment beacon right up top. Honestly, this is not necessarily the hardest working ship. You know, all work, no play, etc. So there are occasionally basketball tournaments here. But of course, the ship wouldn't be a ship if it didn't have claws. So obviously, we do have some artillery ready to go and a settler ready to operate it at all times. So if I ever decide I just don't like someone very much, then we can just toss one of those lovely little smoke grenades over the side at them, whoever the hell they are. And the cannon goes round. And if we just wait for 1 second for him to line up the shot properly. Beautiful. And lovely. Would you believe that those nice children of Atom preachers next door don't come around wanting to talk to me about Atom that often? Now this here I'm particularly proud of. This is obviously the plank for, you know, instances where people have misbehaved. Now this man hasn't misbehaved, but you know what? I think we've got more than enough defense, so you are going to go to there. If you'd be so kind, I will demonstrate in a moment how the plank works. So we simply command anyone who's misbehaved out onto the plank. Yes, I would like to store this shag floor in the workshop. And that there is how the plank works. I think he might be dead. There we are, plank fixed up, ready to go, good as new for next time. This room at the back, by the way, aside from the fact that we have some lovely ship art along the back, this is actually my captain's cabin, so obviously this is where I get to live. So obviously I've done it up quite nicely. I obviously get a private toilet and private bath, nice kitchen table with chairs either side for telling people they're about to be made to walk the plank. Powered television, honestly, there's not that much on, but you never know when something good might come on, do you? This is my collection of adorable animal prints, which is always welcome. Nice pool table in case you want to play pool. This is just a nice little spot to sit with a footrest in case you just want to stare out over the sea. It's a very relaxing place with all this lovely open space. And a bed next to my chem cooler there, just so my chems are nice and cool if I just need something to calm me down before I go to sleep. Lovely little view from up here. Just in case I fancy something even fancier though, obviously I did build these stairs up here. Just a couple of little lookouts, but also just as importantly, my very fanciest armchair. Just next to a couple of bottles of spirits there, just in case I need some whiskey, vodka, or if it's been a particularly bad day, whiskey mixed with vodka. So yes, a lovely little place to sit here, just enjoy the wind in my hair. Very nice indeed. And there we are, a bit of a closer look at the turbines there. A beautiful ship, if I do say so myself. The Royal Britant is a magnificent vessel. So, let's have a chat about how this magnificent thing was built, why don't we? So, we need to just go over a couple of very simple principles. Obviously, anyone who's done too much building in Fallout 4 will be familiar with these, but these are quite useful things to know. One, while kind of basic floors and walls are quite difficult to stack in Fallout 4, anything that lives in the prefab section that has a roof that forms a cube can kind of be treated like a block in Minecraft. So if we kind of build one of those there, then we can build one straight on top. They don't clip on, however, so you've got to manually make sure that they're nicely lined up, which can be a little bit tricky. However, while things don't vertically clip on, horizontally, they do. So all you've got to do is just kind of get one thing up, and you're absolutely sorted. Second, physics doesn't actually matter in the slightest in Fallout 4. No forces really impact them, so it doesn't matter if something's top heavy or side heavy or whatever. 3, forces that don't impact buildings in Fallout 4 includes gravity. So this is how you make flying things. You basically just need to build your way up, and then you can simply just demolish the lower structures, and you've got yourself a flying structure there. Obviously, that's not the most efficient way to do it. The most efficient way to build up is as follows. Simply get yourself some stairs. After you've done that, just keep clipping staircases onto each other until you're at the height that you want to be at. Once you've got high enough, then you can simply start laying the foundations for your piece. The nice thing about the top layer of staircases is pretty much anything will clip onto them. So I can now clip that down, and now I've got a floating bit of floor. And then I can just simply kind of clip as much floor down, attach walls to that, etc. So now I've got the basis on which to build the foundation for a floating house, for example. One thing I will, however, advise right now, if you're building at height, always wear power armor. While you're in build mode, you can fall off things and normal fall damage applies, and fall damage in Fallout 4 is horrendous. So you're definitely going to be wanting to build while wearing power armor, just in case you have a bit of a small fall. So let's talk about how that ship was actually built. Well, I've built a little cross section of it right here, just to demonstrate exactly how it was put together. So all I did was I used the stack staircase method to get up to the height that I wanted, towards the top of the lighthouse, and then I simply laid a bit of floor along. Then I just laid floor for the length of the ship that I wanted. Off the side of that, I just laid 2 walls. The nice thing about these types of walls that you can find in the kind of the wood walls tab of construction is you can actually lay a piece of floor on top of them. The game's totally happy with a piece of flooring being laid on top of this style of wall, which means you can create kind of the next layer of floor directly on top of it, and then on top of the mid deck you can just lay a 3rd layer of floor, and that becomes the actual top deck there, which is very, very useful. One thing it is worth noting for flying structures, however, and I think not that many people actually know this, is there is a vertical limit to building in this game, and it varies hugely from settlement to settlement. So, same as we were doing before, let's build a nice stairwell going up. So that's 2 stairwells, 3 stairwells, 4 stairwells, 5 stairwells, and I'm no longer allowed to build anymore. And indeed, if I go to the top of the 5th stairwell, I'm outside of the buildable area, and if I go any further, I will be basically taken out of building mode, and I'm not allowed to build anything else. So in Sanctuary Hills, this here, up about 5 staircases, is the top of the build area. So now we're at the Kingsport Lighthouse, and by the way, I'm starting from the ground level by the house. This settlement actually starts even lower down than this, so technically I could start counting from down there on the beach. That's the lowest point in this settlement, but I don't think we really need to do that. Let's just start working from here. So I've just quickly thrown up a structure here at Kingsport, and this is up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we've not even reached the bottom of the area that I'm allowed to build to yet. See, this is the thing about settlements. They've all got different vertical limits. Basically, if you want to build something in the sky, then what you need to look for is settlements that have great big massive structures in them, because obviously the game has to have the vertical limits set higher in order to accommodate those structures. I haven't actually catalogued any others beyond this one, but I would suspect Kingsport is one of the tallest in the wasteland. So if you want to build yourself a nice high up airship, obviously this is a good thing to do. Obviously, a couple of other touches I'm very, very proud of here. The tether is obviously, that's just a wire running from a generator to just a completely pointless little kind of power conduit that I fixed to the path of the lighthouse. It's obviously functionally useless, but I just really, really wanted it to look like I'd tethered the ship in place so it didn't float off. The engines are the wind turbine. I think not many people really remember the wind turbine exists, because honestly, I don't really see why you'd ever actually use it. It's kind of useless when you could just build loads of medium generators, and I always build medium generators. I don't like building large generators because they use up aluminium, and I like aluminium, it's important. But yeah, the wind turbines are here. Again, don't know why you'd ever kind of use the windmill generator, just because, yeah, I mean, it uses up 4 copper and 10 aluminium for a generator that only produces 3. Like, I think I see why no one ever uses this. But they do make quite fun little engines to stick on the back of airships. Another thing that you can do, obviously, if you've got an airship and thus for the sake of realism, you don't actually want kind of stairs or a path set up to access it, it's very, very important that you remember that in Resources Miscellaneous, you can set your fast travel target. So if you set that actually on top of the ship, then when you fast travel this location, you'll actually travel straight up to the top of your ship, which I've actually done already. So if I fast travel back to Kingsport Lighthouse, then in just a moment. So that's what I've done here, because when I fast travel, I appear at this little welcome mat. That's the fast travel location I've set on top of the ship. If you're going to do that, either make sure you've always got a spare pair of power armor up here, purely for the sake of jumping down so you can actually get to your settlement, or make sure you've got like a location you can jump into, like water, or a high thing you can jump down onto. For me, fortunately, I can do that using the lighthouse. So for the lighthouse, I could theoretically just make that jump. I've done it before, but it's about 50-50, so I would recommend just building yourself a quick landing platform to get down. There we are. Store the stairs away, and there we are. The thing is secure once again. Now, obviously, when you're building an airship, you've kind of got a choice for the style. For this one, I went for one that was designed to look more kind of like a big steampunky style airship with the big engines on the back. There's an alternative, but it comes with a bit of a compromise. Rather than one that looks like an airship, so a slightly kind of more retro version of the Brotherhood's airship for your own personal usage, you could theoretically want to make a big traditional kind of galleon. So in that case, rather than having the big wind turbine engines, you might want to build yourself a sail. Well, I do actually have a plan for that, but I don't think it's necessarily the best result. You see, my original plan to have a massive sail was as follows, which is I can simply use those boxes that I stacked earlier to create a massive grid. So if I come around the back here, you can see that this is just the box with one front and a top, but is otherwise hollow. Simply build a grid of those floating in midair, put a recruitment beacon underneath it to look a bit like the mast, and in order to make it actually look like a sail, you can simply plaster it with the kind of the hanging flags, design of your choice, of course, out of the decorations tab. You'll need quite a bit of cloth, but you could theoretically, just using a bit of scaffolding made out of stairs, cover the whole thing with flags so it looks entirely like material. Then if you want to kind of have some nice kind of like guide ropes in order to make it look more like a sail, you could simply slap some kind of power conduits on the side, put some pylons on the side, and run some cables between them. This was like the plan I was originally planning to do. The problem is, of course, because the top of the sail needs to be within the height build guide, had I made a big sail, the boat itself would have had to have been 4 or 5 kind of blocks further down than it is. So I think it would have been much less impressive because the boat's height would have been much, much lower. However, if you want to build an actual sail, you could do it this way. And I actually think that would look actually pretty good when it's finished, albeit it would take quite a lot of cloth to do. But as it is, the height limit above this thing is only about 1 or 2 blocks higher. In fact, I think if I recall correctly, if I actually go up to the top of this thing, if I just go up to this point here, yeah, I'm outside the buildable area right now. So the limit which I can build on is about there. So this roof is pretty much pressed against the vertical limit. You can kind of see it's pretty much at the same height as the top of the lighthouse there. So basically the game wanted to have this lighthouse here and thus had to set the vertical ceiling for building literally at the very peak of the lighthouse. So therefore I'm allowed to build up to this level too. Normally you would not be allowed to build up this high. There might be a settlement that's kind of got a higher vertical limit than this. I don't know of one. Please kind of do say in the comments as a help to other people if you're familiar with that. But there she is, ladies and gentlemen, the Royal Britannia, the greatest airship ever built. Far better than anything the Brotherhood ever put together. I will say, by the way, this takes a lot of resources to do, building a flying thing. I do recommend you have local leaders set up so you can set up supply routes. If not, it's basically just a case of putting on some power armor and ferrying supplies from a couple of your settlements. I basically built this by stripping everything that was at Sanctuary Hills, the castle, and Kingsport Lighthouse itself. Between those 3 settlements, I pretty much had enough to build that. But yeah, because of the amount of extra stuff you have to build, it is pretty resource intensive. So yes, there she is, the Royal Britannia. I do hope some of you are willing to consider putting together your own airship. It's very good fun, albeit, yes, be careful of fall damage. Be very careful of fall damage. And yes, I think she's at her most beautiful at night. I'll put some spotlights at the front and the engines glow as well. She's utterly beautiful. I would love to see some more people doing some airship work because airships are magnificent. Of course, I think there's also kind of with the sail design I discussed earlier, there's kind of potentially a case for building like a beautiful kind of ship, either kind of in the waters. Which type's got water? Like Sanctuary's got a bit of water. I need to check which settlements actually have like the best big supply of water for you to actually kind of build a big sail ship next to. But yes, there we are. Just a quick kind of little introduction and guide to building an airship. I'm sure some of you will be very familiar with that, but for some of you who haven't done as much building, I think this is very good fun, and you don't need any of the kind of the charisma settlement building perks in order to do this. You can totally do this without any local leader whatsoever. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe I'll do another little build guide if I come up with anything extra that's interesting to build in future. But in the meantime, I've been John. This has been Many a True Nerd, and this has been my little kind of tour and build guide to my beautiful airship, the Royal Britannia. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Apparently they've all decided to bring knives to a gunfight, which is a terrible idea. Oh yeah, you try charging, why don't ya? Oh dear. Never charge the man with the shotgun. Does it involve me going and killing people? Because if so, how many and where? Right, this is embarrassing. I've kind of just locked myself out of my flat. Do you happen to have a spare set of keys?